Governor Newsom not content with having a state with some of the most pro-choice laws in the country. He has now released his budget with all kinds of creative new ways to waste our money on various pro-choice schemes to help fund the abortion industry. You're listening to Right to Life Radio right here on Power Talk 96.7 AM 1400. I am John Girardi, the Executive Director of Right to Life of Central California, the CEO of the Obria Medical Clinics of Central California, and here with me, as always, the CEO, gosh, we just got all these fancy titles, the CEO of the California Family Council, none other than Mr. Jonathan Keller.
That's me.
All right.
Excited to be here.
Now we've got all of our, I've got like a lot of titles now. I'm realizing I now basically have 2.25 jobs, sort of, between host of the, also I'm the host of the John Girardi Show right here on Power Talk, Monday through Friday, 6 to 7 p.m.
Yeah. So that's like 2.67 titles.
It's only a 1 hour a day show, so I don't know how much of a job that really is. But anyway,
2.625 titles.
There you go. So I want to talk about, this is a pro-life show. We talk about pro-life issues, and this is a California-specific issue, so all of our millions of listeners across the country, and I know there are some of you in other parts of the country listening to us, bear with me. We are talking about some California stuff here. And the specific thing we're going to talk about is a couple of proposals that Gavin Newsom has included in his budget proposal. Now, this is as best we can discern from his budget proposal. The summary of Gavin Newsom's budget proposal is 400 pages long. So that's just the summary.
Fun stuff.
So it's one of those, you got to pass it to figure out what's in it, I guess, kind of dealios. Thank you, Nancy Pelosi, for that lovely little phrase in the American political lexicon. BusinessInsider.com has a story about it. California wants to give $20 million in student loan repayments and scholarships to healthcare workers who commit to providing abortion access.
And John, I would like to delete...
Abortion access. It's the big buzzword.
I would
access.
They really should just delete. I mean, editors are all about simplifying things, and
although clearly not modern editors, given how long the headline is for this Business Insider article. Yeah,
I would say if I was a editor, I would very simply. I mean, you could start by just removing the words "to," "providing," and "access," and just say
who commit
scholarships
abortions
to healthcare workers who commit abortion.
Yeah, that's sort of what we're seeing here. So, we had a decently long segment about this last week. We got deeply philosophical last week, Jonathan.
Yes.
I don't know if you recall.
I do.
Where I was talking about, the law can have a large spectrum of approaches to a given topic.
Mm-hmm.
And it can go all the way from criminal prohibition on the one hand to totally legal and government subsidized on the other. And there's a big spectrum in between, and that the various approaches that the government, that the law takes towards something can have a profoundly educative effect on the populace. They're basically not every problem requires a sledgehammer to solve. And we were talking about that in the context of the Texas abortion law and some pro-lifers who are in the the self-styled abortion abolitionists, who are these particularly aggressive pro-lifers who basically think any pro-lifer who's trying to pursue incremental strategies is a phony and a sellout and not even an authentic Christian. So, very helpful, very helpful commentary from them.
Yes.
But basically they take this sort of perspective. They have this, I think, very weak understanding of law, as if it's just a sledgehammer when all you have is a sledgehammer, everything looks like a nail. And what I was pointing out was, anyway, there's a lot of approaches that we can take towards something. Gavin Newsom has promoted in California, has continued to promote and furthered in California an approach to abortion that is maximally supportive, permissive, and we could be on the cusp in this legislative session of basically making abortion a completely free service for anyone in California. Beyond just a free service, it's a thing where we're going to pay people, we're going to pay off student loan debt for healthcare professionals who do it. So this is the Business Insider story. Californians who are studying to work in healthcare might get help paying their way through school if they commit to providing reproductive health services while on the job. California Governor Gavin Newsom released his $227 billion budget proposal last week for the upcoming fiscal year, which includes $20 million to incentivize students studying healthcare to commit to providing abortion access. It also highlighted investments in the state's pandemic response, including improving education for... Okay, no one cares about that. We're talking about the abortion aspect. Right. As always, our budget is built on our core California values of inclusion, economic growth, and a brighter future for all, Newsom said in a statement.
May not apply.
Does not
apply to unborn children.
Yeah, guaranteed does not apply to all. The proposal comes at a time when the legality of abortion is being challenged in the Supreme Court, with the landmark Roe v. Wade decision at risk of being overturned. If that happens, Newsom has a vision of California as a sanctuary state. To ensure his residents will have abortion access, he's proposing a one-time investment in helping a new generation of healthcare workers pay off their student loans and receive scholarships as long as they commit to providing abortion access throughout their careers. So he's going to be paying people not just to do abortions right now, but to be basically abortion providers into the long term.
Yes.
Now,
a generational investment, John.
Yeah. Now, one of the things I learned when we were trying to get our prenatal healthcare clinic started, Obria Medical Clinics of Central California, open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5.
What's your website, by the way?
Obria.org. Obria.org is where you go. The Fresno landing page isn't 100% finished right now. All of Obria.org is getting kind of a facelift here, so bear with us. However, if you want to call to make an appointment, if you are pregnant and you don't have insurance, you're on Medi-Cal, or if you're on most insurances, 559-705-6911. So, anyway, when I was getting Obria set up, one of the things I learned was that for federally qualified health clinics, so for those who don't know, federally qualified health clinics are nonprofit clinics that serve chiefly lower-income populations in a given region. They provide kind of a broad range of mostly primary care services, some prenatal care services, dental care, a bunch of different things. If you work as a young doctor for an FQHC, there are programs available to have your student loans paid off.
Seems reasonable.
Right. And it's a reasonable idea. Student loan debt is a huge problem in this country. Student loan debt for medical students is particularly a really bad problem. You have people who are willing to go 6 figures into debt with the idea that they'll become a doctor and they can pay it off. So, and we figure, okay, well, what better way to help this? Let's have a federal program to forgive student loan debt. If you work for an FQHC, you're serving lower income populations, you're providing them with good medical care, and we'll ease up on your student loans. You know, great idea. Sounds really reasonable and like a really great program. What Gavin Newsom is doing is continuing this fiction about abortion being essential health care, because that's the whole idea of FQHCs, providing basic essential health care services for lower income populations. And California has basically insisted on this characterization of abortion as essential health care. Now, you might think, well, okay, it's just a word. What does the word mean? Words have meanings. Words have legal impact, he says, as I pound my desk like Khrushchev. Words have legal impacts. I will. We will bury you. We will bury you. All right. That's enough of that. Okay. Words have meaning.
That is some deep communist back referencing for those.
There you go.
You got to be watching online to get that.
You Zoomers, you don't have any idea what we're talking about.
All you pro-life Cold Warriors out there.
Yeah, there you go. My kind of peeps. So I completely lost my train of thought, Jonathan.
Sorry.
Where the heck did we go?
I
got completely... You. Okay, so we were talking about... Words have meaning. Words have meaning. That's where we are. So words have meaning. And by characterizing abortion as essential health care, that had huge impacts, particularly on insurance markets, but also had a huge impact during COVID. Okay? So It used to be back in the day, elective abortion was treated as what it is, elective. If you have if you are pregnant with a baby, in 99% of circumstances, you can either have the baby or not. That is the definition of elective. It is up to your choice, your election, if you will. And because it was elective, it's therefore not essential. In fact, you could, if you probably whipped out a thesaurus, you would probably find as an antonym for elective, necessary. So what did California do? California realized that insurance plans had to cover essential services, and elective abortion was not one of those essential services. And there were a lot of places that would get exceptions so that they would not have to cover abortion, like religious organizations and things like that. So back in, this was 2014, correct, Jonathan? August of 2014?
Yes.
All right.
The Department of Managed Health Care.
The California Department of Managed Health Care issues this letter to all the major insurance providers in California and says, we've redefined what constitutes essential health care, and we've included abortion as one of those things. That's essential health care.
Essentially, just like Yul Brynner in the Ten Commandments, so let it be written, so let it be done. That was it. There was no debate. There was no legislation passed. There was no signature from the governor. It was just, all right.
It was just a letter.
This is it.
Yeah.
This is the New Deal.
So by doing that, just with the stroke of a pen, the California Department of Managed Health Care insisted that every single insurance plan sold in the state of California has to cover effectively elective abortion. But really what they did is eliminate the whole category of elective abortion. Like that, it's not even a category under California law. All abortion is now deemed an essential service. This is why, even at the height of COVID, you couldn't get a scoliosis surgery. You couldn't get like all these different kinds of surgeries were pushed off because they were, elective, because they were not acute, because they were not essential at the moment. And this resulted in a lot of people having worse healthcare outcomes because they had to push off surgery that, they needed to have them at some point, maybe just not right then. But guess what never closed for a single day? Planned Parenthood. Guess what never shut down? Abortion providers. Why? Because, again, we have legally redefined abortion to be essential healthcare. So by that standard, pay for medical students to do abortions. Pay off their student loans. I mean, that's the legal regime that our state operates under when it comes to abortion. It's all about it's all about abortion access, and if you deem abortion to be essential, then it has to be covered under insurance, and it makes sense. If this is an essential service that lower income women need, why not pay off the student loan debt of people who need it? When we return, we'll talk more about that access buzzword and other topics next on Right to Life Radio. We are discussing Governor Newsom's budget proposals for this year, which has some humdingers, including $20 million to pay off the student loan debt of doctors in order to encourage them to do more abortions. If you do abortions, we will pay off some of your student loan debt. That's the idea. And this article about it is from Business Insider. And I was laughing at just one paragraph, how many liberal buzzwords, how many, social left buzzwords could they pack in? So the paragraph in this Business Insider article talking about it, it says, given the conservative majority on the court, the ban on abortion from Mississippi in the Dobbs v. Women's Health Organization case, the ban is likely to be upheld, and it sets an alarming precedent for pregnant people across the country seeking abortion access.
That's right.
First, pregnant people, because God forbid we say, pregnant women, and then seeking abortion access. Now, the word access,
It's doing a lot of work in that sentence.
In this whole article, the word abortion access is suffused throughout. And I want to talk about access as it relates to this plan. Okay, so this is $20 million to pay off student loan debts for doctors to do abortions. Now, first of all, is this idea of access. Access is the big liberal buzzword around abortion nowadays. Gone are the days of safe, legal, and rare. In are the days of safe, legal, and universally accessible. Basically, anytime any woman wants an abortion, any barrier to her access should be knocked down. If she can't afford it, have the state pay for it. Have your taxpayer dollars pay for it. If she can't physically get to an abortion clinic, have the abortion come to her. Have abortion pills sent through the mail. The FDA has just approved it on a permanent basis, having abortion pills sent through the mail.
What's the worst that could happen?
What's the worst that could happen other than someone dying or having, hemorrhaging and all kind of infection, all kinds of other than all of the bad side effects from chemical abortion? What could happen? Now,
besides that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play?
How was the play? Exactly. Now, here's the thing, Jonathan, that I realized. So you can send abortion pills through the mail now.
Yes.
That is now legal. And there's nothing in California prohibiting that from happening. So if the state of California is going to pay $20 million to pay off student loan debts for doctors to do abortions, one of the essential features of the chemical abortion regime, the pill abortion regime, is that you don't need a doctor to do it.
Right.
It's just you take the pill. You take the pill, then you take the second pill. You're basically artificially inducing a miscarriage. But you don't need a doctor to do it. So what kind of abortions are we talking about paying off the student loans of doctors for doing? We're not talking about first trimester abortions anymore, are we? I mean, maybe some, but this is why we talk about the pill abortion regime a lot, because I think a lot of people still think about abortion as chiefly a surgical procedure, and that is less and less true. More and more abortions are being done in the first trimester with the abortion pill regime, where you take mifeprex or mifepristone. That cuts off the baby's food supply, baby dies. A few days later, you take misoprostol, which induces labor, and you expel the baby. Again, it's kind of like artificially bringing about a miscarriage. And that's done in the first 10 weeks of pregnancy. So it's not just that we're going to pay abortion doctors $20 million to pay off their student loan debt. We might be paying abortion doctors $20 million paying off their student loan debt for doing second trimester abortions and maybe even third trimester abortions. Okay, maybe abortions on viable fetuses. Jonathan, knowing his involvement in so much of California abortion politics, I would not be shocked if Dr. Daniel Grossman from the Bixby Center for Reproductive Science, from the Bixby Center from UC San Francisco. Dr. Daniel Grossman is the head of the Bixby Center for Reproductive Health at UC San Francisco, which is the epicenter of all abortion evil in the state and possibly the country. They do late-term abortions there. They teach doctors how to do late-term abortions there. Do you think maybe to get student loan debt paid off for medical students, maybe Dr. Grossman had a hand in that?
Seems highly likely.
It seems highly likely to me, too.
I mean, just, John, the perverse incentive, conditioning loan repayments on, hey, just knock a few years off, knock a little bit of money off your payments, just end a few lives. No big deal.
Yeah. We'll talk about this a little bit more and about public funding of abortion next on Right to Life Radio, right here on Power Talk. Okay, I want to talk a little bit more about public funding for abortion. And I want to ask Jonathan, I want to first paint for the audience the entire spectrum of what the state of California seems to be on the brink of doing this year when it comes to abortion. And then I want to ask Jonathan the big question of, are they overplaying their hand? Is this bevy of proposals too much even for Californians to stomach?
Well, that's a good question.
That's a good question. All right, so first let's lay it out. Okay, let's lay out all the different things that are on the table.
Yes.
Okay. So first you have Governor Newsom's budget, which we just talked about today, $20 million to pay off student loan debt for doctors doing abortion. I'm sure that's going to go to, Dr. Grossman and all of his students at Bixby Center, all of their, paying off all their student loan debt. $20 million to pay off student loan debt of doctors who perform abortions. You've got this whole suite of proposals that Gavin Newsom seems to be cheerleading, that Tony Atkins, the Senate Majority Leader, Senate President Pro Tem, is endorsing to make California a sanctuary state for abortion.
And when we say whole bunch, literally this document, 15 pages long, contains 45 specific policy proposals.
45 specific proposals.
And the one that is immediately picked up, the one we spent a lot of the first segment talking about with Newsom's student loan repayments, that is explicitly included in this proposal.
Right. So clearly they've got a strategy here for, have some of this stuff be included in the budget proposal. And I'm sure other parts of it are going to be included in specific legislative vehicles that are going to be introduced over the course of the next month.
Right.
Yeah. So what kinds of things are we talking about? We're talking about paying for people to come to California from out of state to have abortions, paying for childcare for abortions, having Medi-Cal coverage be provided for out-of-state people having abortions, passing legislation to eliminate all out-of-pocket costs for abortion whatsoever for anyone who has insurance. We can go on and on and on. The list is staggering. This is a huge, and on top of all of that, a proposal for a single-payer California healthcare system. Now, that one I think is a bigger reach to pass because insurance companies are still very, very powerful.
Yes.
I don't know that they're going to go for that.
The funniest line on that, John, that I just have to say, when Newsom was asked, because he has a lot of expanded healthcare proposals in his budget, and the funniest line that I saw someone say from Cal Matters. Let me just read this to you.
Okay, go for it.
He says he's talking about the other article from Cal Matters here. It says Newsom stops short of single-payer health care, but lawmakers forge ahead.
Okay.
Don't ask Governor Newsom about Democratic lawmakers' proposal, AB 1400, to create a state-funded single-payer health care system. He hasn't read it. And this is the quote from Monday in the press conference. I have not had the opportunity to review that plan, and no one has presented it to me.
Yeah, I'm sure. So this is Newsom caught between a rock and a hard place. He's caught between his own campaign promises from 2018, where he's we're going to have a universal California healthcare system. And now that he's actually
patchwork of unworkable insurance plans.
Yeah. Now that he's actually in office and knows that insurance companies are actually really, really powerful, and you need to stay on their good side, and they give you lots of money. All of a sudden, he's whistling a different tune. Anyway. If that were to pass, I'm sure that would have massive abortion funding. Anyway, so with all of these proposals to expand abortion funding, now we have the FDA allowing pill abortions to be sent through the mail. The question needs to arise it doesn't need to arise. I'm arising it. I'm causing it to rise. Is this more than Californians are willing to stomach? Is this the point where Californians are going to say, no, this is too much? Jonathan, I don't know the answer, and I'm afraid the answer is no.
Well, so let me put it this way. I don't think that people will be opposed
enough to cause any electoral discomfort for anyone?
Okay, so let's separate the universal healthcare angle, because I think there's a lot of progressives that would be open to the idea of California trying their own universal healthcare.
Sure. And we're just assuming, by the way, for the sake of this argument, that if a universal healthcare system is passed, given the kinds of people promoting it, it's going to have universal coverage for abortion.
Yes. Yeah. I mean,
based on
SB 245, which is still kind of pending, we're waiting to see what happens with that bill, and the angles on this. Let me read for you, as you noted here also, this line from the budget in that Cal Matters article. it says he being Newsom noted that although the budget plan invests in reproductive rights, it doesn't call for a, quote, mass expansion, unquote, in funding to help out-of-state women seek abortions in California.
Right.
And I think the reason that he felt the need to make that statement was because of the massive amount of pushback in conservative circles that the proposal to pay women abortion tourism to come to California is getting. And John, I want to just point out people are noting.
Although, in fairness, I mean, I guess it is a thing of like you need. Okay, let me go through this.
All right.
You need a 2/3 majority to pass a budget in California.
Right.
Democrats have 3/4 majorities in both houses.
Right.
Is there really a thought that? Is it a thing that he's a little afraid of putting a proposal like that in the budget specifically because he thinks it could peel off some more fiscally moderate Democrats who are like, I'm not sure about this?
I do think that is possible, and I think probably what he would rather do is pass his budget,
over here.
Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, as fast as possible, and then get it easily done, and then be able to move forward with maybe some standalone bills.
Individual pieces of legislation.
Right.
Yeah, well, and those you don't need a 2/3 majority to pass.
And here's, right. Now, if they're fiscal related, I still don't think they will have to go through appropriations committee, but if it's just a normal bill, you wouldn't have to do it.
But now you're just talking about getting a simple majority.
And so, John, the interesting thing on this is, I think, though, the budget proposal, I think you're going to have an almost impossible time stopping, just because,
of course,
nobody wants to vote against the governor in an election year and everything else. But I think for these other things, I had a meeting about a week and a half ago, almost 2 weeks ago. I had a meet up with some of my progressive friends. I didn't tell you this. I drove over to San Mateo and we sat outside and had a couple beers with a few of my progressive friends that I always am chatting with on Facebook.
Well, there you go.
And it was nice. It was a good chat. I am literally, my nickname in the group is the token conservative religious social media thinkfluencer, is I think my title.
Okay.
So everybody else in the group is much more progressive on I think every single issue than me.
Sure.
I think I'm the only person who attends church. I'm one of only, I think, 2 or 3 people who is married with children. There are also some people from the LGBT community in the group. So anyway, suffice it to say, much different makeup than the people in this room recording the podcast.
All right.
When I shared the idea that Newsom is talking about expanding abortion coverage, I mean, they all know where I stand on abortion. Most of them are at least softly pro-choice. They're not Planned Parenthood activists, but they're pro-choice.
Right.
I shared this idea that we're going to be paying money to people from out of state to fly here. And one of these guys, who is a progressive, but he's also a taxpayer, he's a successful venture capital startup guy. He has a tech firm that he has out in the Bay Area. He goes, wait a minute, what? And I said, yeah, and they're talking about not just paying for the abortions, but actually underwriting the travel costs and everything.
Paying for childcare. Yeah.
And he says, what about the homeless situation? The fact that we have massive homelessness.
Right.
What about the drug dens that are in the Tenderloin district in San Francisco?
Right. Well, I'll even give some of my own experience here as now the director of a nonprofit prenatal healthcare clinic. So we're going to give scholarships to pay off student loan debt for doctors to perform abortions. Meanwhile, in Fresno County, it's something like 77% of women in South Fresno don't get, only 77% of women in South Fresno get any prenatal care before they deliver. A bunch of people, their prenatal care is just crashing in the ER. There are like 3 or 4 providers in all of the city of Fresno who actually want to take, there are just not a lot of providers who want to take Medi-Cal patients for OB care in Fresno. And it's a couple of guys who are taking everybody. And so you can have, everyone's got access to Medi-Cal. We've got Medi-Cal. Okay, that's fine. But if a provider doesn't want to take Medi-Cal, then what good is it? If you don't have a doctor who will see you, then what good is your insurance coverage? There are huge problems with poverty, healthcare inequity, lack of access to prenatal care. Before you get, for people who want to have babies, let alone this idea that a service that, there's no lack of access to abortion. I mean, people can go to Planned Parenthood and they can get their abortions all they want. Like this idea that we are so focused on this one healthcare service to the total detriment of abdication of every other healthcare service, it boggles the mind. Like we're going to eliminate all deductibles and copays for abortion, but what about for having a baby? I mean, no.
Yes.
Yeah.
And John, that's another thing that he points out here in his budget. One of the other specific things he mentions is, we're going to try to do, how did he put it here? We're going to try to do manufacturing in California of our own insulin. Mm-hmm. We're going to try to come up with ways, instead of having the massive expense for diabetic Californians, like our friend Kyle, for example. No one should go bankrupt having to pay for insulin. Well, okay, that's great. I'm glad that he is focusing on those types of concerns. But as you said, it is this incredibly tiny sliver of all the healthcare costs. And we seem to be incentivizing one very specific type of medical procedure.
Right.
To the vast exclusion of all sorts of other medical procedures.
Exactly. All right, well, we'll talk about this from the public money angle a little bit more after the break. You're listening to Right to Life Radio right here on Power Talk 96.7 AM 1400. I'm going to return, Jonathan, to this question of what would it take for the California voter to say, you know what, this is too much abortion stuff. This is too much abortion funding. It's too much. And I want to address, I think, the key problem for us to ever get to a breaking point with the California voter over excessive abortion stuff. One of the key problems is people are mostly clueless about state government stuff. People are mostly clueless about state government stuff. I believe this is true. I think people are mostly clueless about state government news, information, what's happening. Because, one, the media, I don't think, does a great job of covering it. Too many people get their news from Fox News and CNN and national outlets like that, and the national outlets are just not going to cover the day-to-day of what's happening in Sacramento the way that, for example, we will. If we're talking about abortion, we will cover what happens in Sacramento very closely. But, unfortunately, our listenership is, it's not, we're only in the several millions of listeners. Right? I'm just kidding. Yeah. Rather than the tens of millions of listeners, we're at a mere. No, just kidding. And that's. But I do think that's a problem. And I think even local outlets. This was one of my frustrations sometimes with the Fresno Bee's coverage of state political stuff. They would have a story about the first time they would mention some crazy pro-choice bill would be after it passed out of one of the committees. Oh, the Senate, the Senate Judiciary Committee in the California State Senate just passed SB, 12345, which requires every 5-year-old to perform abortions. And it's like, wow, that it would have been useful information if you had told us about that bill before the committee had a vote on it. Maybe we could have called a local state senator about it and asked them to vote no. Like, what are you doing? Like, why are you reporting on it after the fact in a story buried on page A3, which is like that the Fresno Bee has like 3 or 4 pages nowadays. So that's really buried for Fresno Bee terms. So that's my constant frustration is that I'm afraid. So one, I'm afraid that people won't care in California about all this pro-choice stuff because they won't even know.
Yeah.
And secondly, one of the reasons they won't know, there are certain kinds of tax-focused, conservative-ish groups in California. The various chambers of commerce, Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, who they've got enough Orange County money and muscle to get people riled up.
Yep.
About
don't take away my property tax exemption.
No, we gotta preserve Prop 13, historic Prop 13. We got to preserve historic Prop 13. And they can get together enough support to beat back bad stuff in their eyes that threatens certain kinds of fiscal conservative priorities. But these slime balls, these snakes who've relied on pro-life voters to get elected and get into position of prominence this whole time, they don't care about social issues. Okay, Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association would be fine with legal abortion through the 10th month of pregnancy as long as, our capital gains tax rate stayed low.
I hate to say, I really hope that's not true, John. I don't want to believe that that's the case.
Well,
but
I'm just saying. I'm just saying, So that's the frustrating thing is that
I will
wonder,
say, John, if that's true, it would kind of be it would be painful, almost as bad as
what?
A kick in the head.
As a kick in the head. Oh, okay. I thought that you were just doing an enormously bad radio. All right, that'll do it for Right to Life Radio. We'll see you next time on Power Talk.